Welcome, dear dreamer, to another serene evening with whispers of the night. I'm so glad you're here, ready to leave behind the worries of the day and step into a world of calm. Tonight, we will journey together through the twilight, guided by gentle footsteps and quiet wonders, into the embrace of sleep. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to Whispers of the Night for daily tales, calming stories, and soft moments of peace. Tap the bell so you'll always be first to receive these gentle journeys into rest. Let's take a slow, deep breath together, inhaling the calm of the evening and exhaling any tension, any lingering thoughts. Feel the weight of the day release softly, like the last golden rays of sunlight. Tonight, we step lightly into the world of dreams, where every whisper, every shadow, and every glimmer of light holds a secret meant only for you. Allow your mind to settle, your body to relax, and your heart to open to the magic of the night. For in this quiet, we will meet Hermes, a gentle guide of the twilight, carrying whispers of dreams and soft threads of serenity for all who listen. And now, let us begin our journey together. Now, let us wander further into the gentle twilight feel. The air around you grows soft, carrying the fading warmth of the day, the first hints of night's embrace. Every sound, every whisper of the wind, every subtle rustle of leaves invites your mind to drift. Hermes walks beside you, his sandals brushing lightly over the earth, each step leaving a quiet trail of peace. Notice the threads of dreams floating softly around him, tiny glimmers of possibility and calm. Allow your attention to follow their motion, feeling your own thoughts unwind as they mingle with these luminous trails. Breathe slowly in and out, letting your body sink deeper into comfort. Let the tension roll away like a gentle river, leaving only softness in its place. The crickets begin their evening chorus, steady and rhythmic, and you feel the rhythm echoing within. Your heartbeat easing into harmony with the world around you. Notice the trees swaying softly, their leaves whispering secrets of the day past, carrying the wisdom of quiet patience. Every branch, every shadow, every delicate shimmer of moonlight welcomes you, guiding you closer to the gentle edge of sleep. Hermes pauses by a quiet brook, its water reflecting the first moonlight, rippling gently with your own exhale. Imagine the cool water touching your fingertips, carrying away any lingering worries. With each breath, allow yourself to sink further, deeper into calm, deeper into serenity, letting the threads of dreams weave softly through your mind. Adventure and kindness, courage and understanding, all flow gently around you. This night is yours to explore, to rest, to breathe. Let the quiet of the world and the gentle presence of Hermes lead you, step by step, toward the embrace of your own dreams. As the stars begin to twinkle above, each one whispers a story, a secret, a soft invitation to drift further, and you drift deeper, slower, until the world becomes nothing but a lull of warmth, light, and the quiet hum of peace. The whispering dreams of Hermes, the messenger of twilight. Hermes appeared at the edge of the fading sun, his presence as soft and inevitable as twilight itself. He was not the hurried god of stories and fleeting messages, the one whose wings carried him faster than mortal thought. Instead, he was a quiet companion to the evening, a serene figure gliding through the liminal space between day and night. The colors of the horizon melted into each other, the last streaks of amber and rose bleeding into violet and indigo. In that fragile hour, where the sky seemed to hold its breath, Hermes' sandals brushed against the clouds with delicate precision, disturbing nothing, yet leaving a trace of gentle rhythm in their wake. Each step was a note in a song that only the attentive could hear, a melody of calm that spread silently across the lands below. He carried no scrolls of urgent news, no wings of urgency or battle. His burden was different, lighter, yet infinitely profound. From the folds of his robes, pale as morning mist, small, luminous orbs that shimmered with quiet possibility and half-formed hopes. They rested against his chest, cradled with care, waiting to descend into the minds of those who slept, those who needed a guide through the labyrinth of their thoughts. As he moved, the wind itself seemed to bend around him, reluctant to disturb the soft cadence of his steps. Trees swayed gently in greeting, their leaves whispering secrets that only the twilight understood. The rivers paused, reflecting the subtle glow of the emerging stars. Capturing the moment, Hermes walked between worlds. Every village and town he passed beneath seemed to hush, as if aware of his presence. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, the soft aroma of evening fires mingling with the scent of dew on grass. Children, just returned from play, ran briefly to watch the strange figure whose robes shimmered like the surface of a pond touched by moonlight. They did not see him fully, not in the way an adult might perceive a visitor or a stranger, but they felt him, a warmth, a gentle reassurance that the night would hold no sudden terrors, that dreams could arrive unbroken, untroubled, untouched by fear. Even the animals, paused dogs, tilting their heads, cats brushing softly against door frames, birds folding their wings against the quiet. It was a calm that stretched in every direction, as though Hermes carried not only dreams, but the very essence of peaceful night. He moved with a pace dictated by the unfolding of the sky, neither hurried nor delayed. Each step was a dance, a measured glide across the thin boundary that separated day from night. The clouds seemed to part for him, flowing around him like water in a slow river, leaving him unbroken in his path. The first stars began to tremble faintly in their positions, shy yet radiant, as though aware of the company they were in. Hermes reached out occasionally, his fingers brushing the orbs he carried, and a single dream would float downward, illuminated faintly as it descended. A child would sleep in a simple room and in the quiet chambers of their mind. The dream would arrive, soft, welcoming, and strange, like a memory that had not yet been remembered. A painter would pause mid-sketch, a brush in hand, sensing an unspoken inspiration in the air. A shape that would later appear on canvas as if guided by invisible hands. The rhythm of twilight responded to him, a delicate weaving of possibility and quiet imagination. There were no loud proclamations, no bursts of divine spectacle. Even his wings, folded lightly against his back, were a subtle shimmer, visible only when the corner of one's eye caught the right glint. They were not for flight, but for balance, a reminder that this was a messenger of patience, not haste. He moved from valley to hilltop, from riverbank to forest clearing, touching moments in ways unseen, yet deeply felt. The dew on the grass seemed to hold itself in expectation. The shadows in the corners of streets softened, and the last warm light of the sun seemed to linger on the horizon longer than usual. Reluctant to leave a world so tenderly held, the ordinary became extraordinary simply because he passed through it, carrying with him a quiet promise that the night would be full of gentle revelations. As he walked, Hermes hummed a low, unearthly tone, a vibration that mingled with the sigh of the wind and the rustle of trees. The sound was faint, not audible in a room, but present in the subtle sensation of safety, of being guided. It was not a melody meant for the ears alone, but for the spirit, a lullaby for the mind, an arrangement of notes that could only be felt. Those who were awake at the moment might only notice a sense of peace, a quiet patience that lingered in the chest, a deep exhalation of relief, as if the world itself had slowed just enough for them to catch up. Travelers on lonely roads, farmers tending their final tasks of the day, wanderers pausing to watch the horizon, all of them could sense his arrival, though none could truly describe it. His robes carried a light of their own, subtle yet present, reflecting the slow dance of dusk. Pale blues melted into soft silvers, faint gold threads glinting as he moved. Shadows seemed to avoid him, curling away rather than settling. The small orbs of dreams he held varied in color, shaped by their eventual recipients. Some were soft pastels, gentle and calming, designed to soothe restless sleepers. Others were brighter, with deeper hues, meant to inspire creativity and reflection. Each orb was infused with intention, not unlike a painter selecting the perfect brushstroke, a craftsman choosing the right wood for carving. Hermes understood that dreams, like the night itself, were delicate, and one misstep could shatter their fragile magic. At the edge of a quiet forest, he paused, letting his gaze wander over the silvered leaves and shadowed paths. The night creatures emerged with tentative steps, deer moving cautiously through underbrush, owls perched on branches, observing the silent interloper. Hermes knelt briefly, placing a dream in the form of a luminous feather upon the forest floor. It floated gently toward a clearing where a young fawn would later find comfort in sleep, understanding in some elemental way that the night was not to be feared. The act was small, almost imperceptible, yet it rippled outward as if the very fabric of night had been stitched a little more securely. He continued onward, moving across hills and rivers, through towns and solitary meadows. Lamps in windows flickered to life as he passed, responding not to his touch, but to the soft cadence of his presence. The horizon behind him deepened into violet, the first hints of stars appearing like scattered pearls across a darkening canvas. Even the moon, a slender crescent just beginning to rise, seemed to acknowledge him with a quiet nod, its silver light brushing against his hair and robes. Hermes did not need acknowledgement, yet it was given freely, as though the night itself were grateful for the care he brought. The journey was long, but he bore no fatigue. Time in the twilight had no weight, only movement, only the steady unfolding of shadows and light. He visited dreamers in cities where the air was thick with sound, yet his presence did not disturb, only softened. In villages where night was raw and wild, his gentle steps offered the first measure of comfort. Across rivers that reflected the stars in trembling ripples, he would sometimes pause, crouching to watch the patterns in the water, letting the reflections guide him to those in need of more vivid dreams. Each encounter, no matter how brief, was a weaving of intent, a single thread in the larger tapestry of night in the distance. He could see mountains silhouetted against the growing darkness, their peaks catching the fading blush of sunset. Hermes moved with measured grace toward them, knowing that dreams must reach even the remotest places. Travelers resting at the edge of cliffs, shepherds tending flocks in high meadows, solitary hermits seeking solace would find fragments of their hopes in the quiet gifts he delivered. No one could say exactly when he passed, yet the memory of the encounter lingered, like a cool breeze on warm skin or the scent of rain before a storm. Eventually, he reached a place where the horizon seemed to fold into itself, where the first truly deep shadows of night formed. Hermes paused, taking a breath of the crisp air, feeling the pulse of the world beneath him. The stars above glimmered more insistently now, and he began to scatter the last of his dreams. Some floated upward, caught by gentle currents. Others descended into sleeping homes, guided by invisible hands. He watched as each one settled, knowing that the night would carry them further, that they would bloom into visions, inspirations, and quiet reflections. Finally, as the world became fully veiled in indigo and silver, Hermes lay down upon a soft rise, his robes flowing around him like liquid starlight. His wings rested lightly against his back, the sandals that had traced the horizon now at ease. He opened his eyes, amber gray glowing faintly in the moonlight, reflecting a sky that had been shaped by his careful passage. He did not sleep in the way mortals did, but he rested in the rhythm of the night, a silent guardian whose duty was both simple and infinite. The dreams he carried continued their journey, entering the minds of those prepared to receive them, carrying seeds of wonder, courage, and imagination into the world of slumber. The horizon was still faintly aglow with the last traces of sunset, the stars winking as if in secret conversation. A gentle wind brushed across the landscape, carrying the scent of forest, river, and evening fire. In that quiet, the presence of Hermes felt eternal, yet fleeting, like the memory of a song long after the music has ended. He remained a solitary figure on the rise, watching over the night, a messenger not of words, but of gentle visions, a guide for dreamers and wanderers alike. And as the world slept beneath him, and the rivers whispered to the moon, and the trees bowed to the passing of time. Hermes closed his eyes just slightly, knowing that when the morning came, the dreams he had delivered would have already begun their work, shaping hearts, minds, and the very fabric of imagination, leaving a world softened, illuminated, and infinitely more beautiful for having passed beneath the footsteps of the messenger of twilight. The Feathered Sandals Song. Hermes moved through the fading light of dusk, his presence as soft and inevitable as the first sigh of evening. The world beneath him slowed, responding to the gentle rhythm of his sandals. The winged ornaments that had long been associated with speed now transformed into instruments of quietude. Each step he took upon the clouds or the softened earth was like a brushstroke across the canvas of twilight, a pattern woven not for eyes, but for hearts. The faint rustle of his sandals, barely audible, yet unmistakable to those who listened closely, carried a sound like distant chimes or the whisper of leaves in the wind, a song that seemed to speak directly to the weary, the restless, and those whose minds were heavy with the burdens of the day. This song was not loud or commanding. It did not announce itself in grandiose tones or dazzling displays. Instead, it threaded itself into the very air, mingling with the subtle changes of the sky as day surrendered to night. The first stars trembled in their positions, faintly aware that something unusual, something sacred, was passing over the horizon. Birds settled into their nests, their wings folded, ears attuned to the fading sounds of the day. Animals paused mid-step, feeling a calm descend upon them, as if the rustle of sandals were a signal that the night had arrived, not to frighten or unsettle, but to cradle and comfort. Even the wind slowed its pace, brushing gently against the tall grasses, the flowers, and the soft curve of hills, carrying the song of the winged sandals across the expanse of the world. Hermes' sandals were unlike any ordinary footwear. Their feathers, small and delicate, yet impossibly resilient, shimmered faintly in the twilight, catching and reflecting the light in tiny, pulsing glimmers. They were not made for speed in this hour, nor for the racing of mortal thought. Instead, each feather seemed to hum with a resonance of its own, vibrating with the gentle frequency of calm, producing a lullaby that transcended the audible. Those who had experienced it felt it in their chest and spine first, a subtle resonance that moved through them like warm water, loosening the knots of worry, quieting the clamor of racing thoughts, and preparing the mind for the realm of dreams. The weary, the anxious, the sleepless all found solace in the invisible threads of music woven by the feathers. Beneath Hermes' steps, he moved from town to town, his path traced by the soft shimmer of his footsteps. In a small village by the river, a fisherman had returned late, his mind weighed down by the day's failures and lost hopes. As Hermes passed above, the rustle of his sandals brushed against the evening air, a melody that seemed to seep into the walls, into the beams of the small house. The fisherman paused, resting his hands on the worn wood of his doorframe, and felt an unexpected calm. In the quiet of his room, as night deepened, he would drift into sleep, cradled by dreams he could not yet name, visions that carried both gentle reassurance and the courage to face another day. In this way, Hermes' song traveled silently, unnoticed in its immediacy, but potent in its effect, leaving trails of peace in its wake. Even in the wildest places, the song persisted. In a dense forest, where the air was thick with shadows, where wolves and deer shared the same cautious paths, the feathered sandals' sound flowed like water through the trees. The rustle was a guide, a gentle cadence that moved creatures to rest. A fawn lying in the soft moss lifted its ears, attuned to a sound only it could perceive, before curling comfortably beneath the sheltering boughs of an ancient oak. Farther away, a wolf pup nestled against its mother, the tiny vibration of Hermes' sandals echoing in the earth itself, a lullaby for all who roamed beneath the night sky. The forest seemed to breathe with the rhythm, the branches swaying in harmony, the leaves themselves responding to the tender melody, as if participating in a dance meant only for those willing to listen. The rhythm of the sandals was not constant. It shifted, ebbing and flowing with the landscape and the minds it touched. Over a quiet river, the song softened into something like ripples on water, delicate waves that folded back into themselves, whispering not to hurry, but to pause. Over hills, it gathered a slow, grounding beat, steady as the heartbeat of the earth itself. Through the bustling streets of a small town, it skipped lightly, threading between the noises of evening chatter, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of prayers, or songs sung at home. No one could identify the source, yet all felt it, the soft, unerring sense of safety, the lull of a melody that promised the day's troubles could be set aside, at least until the first light of dawn. Hermes carried more than the sound itself. In the folds of his robes, he cradled dreams meant for each soul he passed. These were not ordinary dreams, but fragile visions imbued with the quiet magic of possibility. Some were wrapped in soft luminescence, calming and nurturing, designed to ease the mind into peaceful rest. Others were brighter, tinged with the subtle fire of inspiration, meant to awaken creativity even in the shadowed hours of sleep. As he walked, he released them carefully, allowing the faint resonance of the sandals to guide their descent. A painter would awaken in slumber to imagine a masterpiece. A writer would dream of stories that began in whispered corners of the mind. A tired mother would dream of renewal and patience in the moments before sunrise. The song of the sandals was the thread that connected all these dreams, a lullaby sung not with voice, but with presence, a melody carried in motion and intention. In a meadow where the grass brushed against the ankles of those who wandered near, Hermes paused to scatter a handful of glowing orbs. Each orb twined itself around the wind, spinning and shimmering like a tiny lantern, seeking the minds most in need of gentle guidance. The air vibrated faintly with the sound of the sandals, a delicate harmony that seemed to anchor the orbs as they descended into the sleeping world. A child lying beneath a tree in a clearing would find themselves dreaming of soaring among clouds, free from fear, guided by an invisible hand. A poet resting beside the river would envision words that danced in the mind like silver ribbons, flowing effortlessly into verse. Hermes smiled slightly, though no one could see him, knowing that his song had found its audience, that the night would cradle them safely, carrying them gently to the edges of imagination. He continued across mountains where the wind cut sharp, yet his sandals' song was never lost. The melody wrapped around peaks and valleys, flowing down slopes to touch remote villages and hidden glades. Travelers paused on ridges, sensing a calm they could not name, their thoughts easing like clouds parted by the gentle hand of a guiding wind. The stars above began to shimmer more fully, reflecting the subtle patterns of the song, their light trembling in sympathy with the quiet resonance of Hermes' sandals. The night itself seemed to bend around him, a pliant and welcoming companion, knowing that its messenger moved with care, that the world could rest for a while under his influence. At times, he knelt to the earth, letting the sandals' sound mingle more deeply with the soil, the roots of trees, and the currents of water that ran through every forest, field, and riverbed. A single note, almost imperceptible, might settle in a sleeping mind, planting courage, hope, or serenity where it was most needed. Hermes understood that such influence was delicate. One false movement could disrupt the fragile balance. Yet his hands and feet were steady, his presence unwavering, a testament to patience and intention. The song of his sandals was not a command, but a gentle invitation, a coaxing of minds and hearts toward the comfort and wonder of dreams. As the night deepened, the horizon darkened to deep indigo, and the first fully visible stars shimmered like scattered gems. Hermes finally found a quiet rise, a gentle hill where he could rest while keeping watch over the landscape he had blessed with his song. There he lay down, the sandals resting lightly against the soft grass, their feathers still faintly glowing in the moonlight. He opened his amber-gray eyes and looked at the stars above, reflecting their quiet brilliance in a gaze both tender and knowing. His wings folded neatly against his back, catching the slightest light and gleaming with the faintest silver, a reminder that he was both guardian and guide, carrying not messages of urgency but melodies of calm. And as he lay, the song of his sandals continued in faint echoes, threads of resonance traveling outward to touch the minds of those below. Sleepers dreamed peacefully, hearts eased, thoughts quieted, and even the restless found calm. The world had become a tapestry of gentle influence, woven with care. Each note of the sandals' song, a thread connecting hearts to hope, imagination, and serenity. Hermes breathed lightly, at peace in the knowledge that the night had been shaped in some small, invisible way by his passage, that the weary had found comfort in his presence, that the lullaby of winged sandals had guided countless souls into the tender embrace of sleep. In that quiet, beneath the soft light of the rising moon and the glimmering stars, Hermes closed his eyes fully, not to sleep as mortals do, but to rest in the rhythm of the night. His sandals, still feathered and luminescent, had sung their song across the world, leaving trails of peace, inspiration, and quiet wonder. The night was no longer merely dark. It was full of potential, alive with dreams, and tender with care. And Hermes, ever gentle, remained there, a solitary guardian, a guide whose winged sandals whispered not of haste, but of calm, carrying the world into the quiet beauty of slumber, until the first light of morning might find them ready to awaken once more. The silver staff of rest. Hermes walked lightly across the horizon, where the sky shifted from the lingering warmth of sunset to the deep indigo of early night. The edges of his robes caught the last glimmers of light, glimmering faintly with the soft hues of silver and gold. His wings rested lightly against his back, unruffled and still, and his sandals whispered against the clouds with the quiet cadence of a lullaby. In his hand, he carried a staff, no ordinary instrument of power or authority, but a silver caduceus that radiated a gentle, encompassing glow. Unlike the caduceus of legend, used to seal agreements or signal swift judgment, this staff was alive with a calming energy, designed not to compel or instruct, but to soothe. Its light moved like liquid, reflecting the rhythm of the universe itself, a subtle heartbeat that mirrored the quiet pulse of the night. The silver staff of rest, as Hermes called it, had the uncanny ability to reach into the minds of those burdened with unrest. As he walked through valleys and towns, the staff emanated faint threads of silver light, weaving into the ether like delicate strands of mist. These threads sought out the anxious, the sleepless, the hearts heavy with worry, and enfolded them in gentle harmony. The color was soft, almost ethereal, neither bright nor harsh, a tone that spoke directly to the spirit rather than to the eye. When it touched a person, the sensation was subtle, yet undeniably quiet release, like a sigh escaping after a long, difficult day, a loosening of tension that had been unnoticed until it was gone in the villages that lay under the horizon. The light of the staff spread in concentric ripples, brushing against the walls of houses, threading between doorways, and slipping through cracks in shutters. Inside, people paused mid-action, unaware of the source of the sudden ease that settled over their minds. A seamstress bent over her work felt her hands relax, her thoughts smoothing out like fabric stretched gently across a loom. A scholar poring over late manuscripts sensed the tension in his shoulders dissolve, a fog lifting from his mind as he breathed in the calm. Children who had been tossing and turning in restless sleep settled against pillows, their breathing slowing in perfect rhythm with the unspoken lullaby that flowed invisibly from Hermes' silver staff. Even in the wilderness, the staff's influence was profound. In the dense forest, shadows folded gently into themselves, the soft glow of the staff penetrating the canopy like moonlight filtering through leaves. Animals paused in their nightly routines, feeling a subtle shift in the air. A fox, restless and anxious, after a day of hunting, curled into the underbrush, comforted without knowing why. Birds roosting in high branches folded their wings with an unspoken calm, their calls quieted to soft murmurs. Even the rivers seemed to respond, their waters flowing a touch more gently as the threads of light from the caduceus intertwined with the currents, soothing not just the creatures who depended on them, but the landscape itself. Hermes did not rush. He moved with a pace dictated by the needs of those around him, his sandals barely touching the earth, each step measured and deliberate. The staff swayed with his motion, emitting quiet arcs of luminescence that extended into the world like whispered promises. He often paused, sensing where the threads of light were most needed, extending them toward towns, fields, or solitary wanderers who had yet to rest. Sometimes he would lift the staff high, its glow painting the clouds above in gentle silver strokes. The stars, newly appearing, seemed to respond, twinkling softly in time with the caduceus pulse. The world itself seemed to bend toward harmony in his presence, a subtle acknowledgement that the night, guided by Hermes, was a sanctuary of peace. In one small valley, a tired shepherd leaned against a fence, eyes heavy with fatigue. He had been tending flocks from dawn until dusk, his mind occupied with concern for the safety of his sheep and the unpredictability of the weather. As Hermes passed overhead, the staff's glow touched him lightly, threading into the edges of his awareness like a gentle stream weaving through stone. The shepherd's breath slowed, and his thoughts, previously tangled and restless, smoothed into clarity. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a sense of ease that was almost physical, as though the air itself had been lightened. When he finally lay down beneath the sky, the threads of the staff continued to spin softly around him, guiding his dreams into a calm, comforting rhythm that promised restoration and rest. Hermes Caduceus did not work merely by proximity. It responded to intention, to awareness, to the quiet pulse of need within every being it touched. As he walked, he extended the staff carefully, sending out tendrils of light toward the wandering, the lost, the hearts too burdened to find calm on their own. A writer, struggling with a storm of thoughts, would feel the fog of distraction lift, replaced by visions that flowed with the gentle cadence of the night. A mother, weary from tending to her children, would feel an unexplainable serenity as she drifted into sleep, her dreams filled with tender images of care and renewal. Even those who had never consciously sought peace received it, carried to them on invisible threads, woven expertly by the silver staff of rest, guided by Hermes' patient hand. At times, Hermes paused at the edge of rivers, where the water reflected the faint light of the staff-like liquid mirrors. He would kneel, trailing the caduceus along the surface without touching, and the currents would respond, softening their flow, lapping gently against the banks. Fish and other creatures beneath the water's surface moved more languidly, sensing a quiet that was more than absence of noise. It was presence of harmony. The staff's threads wove through the water, touching distant villages, guiding dreams to travelers on boats, and easing the minds of those who watched the moon rise over the rippling currents. In such moments, the harmony of the world and the calm of the mind were inseparable, and Hermes's presence was the quiet hinge upon which this balance rested. The light from the staff shifted with intention. Where the air was thick with worry or stress, the glow brightened slightly, not harshly, but enough to indicate the work being done, like a painter adjusting the brushstroke in mid-creation. Where minds were already calm, the luminescence softened, receding gently so as not to disturb the natural flow of rest. Everywhere it passed, it left traces of serenity, small, almost imperceptible imprints that would linger even after the first rays of dawn began to stretch across the horizon. It was a silent, patient craft, the kind of care that could not be rushed or forced, only guided with awareness, empathy, and an intimate understanding of the fragility of human and animal hearts alike. In towns, the glow of the staff often found itself slipping beneath doors into the tiniest spaces where anxiety or unrest might hide. It touched the minds of those awake with worry and the minds of those already asleep, deepening the tranquility of their dreams. Children who had cried themselves to rest suddenly found themselves enveloped in the soft embrace of calm visions. Adults who had lain awake with racing thoughts felt their minds untangle, the threads of stress unwinding like yarn in gentle hands. The silver staff did not judge, did not demand, and did not impose. It merely offered, and in offering, it transformed the night into a sanctuary, a cradle for minds and hearts alike. Hermes' own eyes reflected the silver light of the staff as he moved, amber-gray deepening in the darkness, warm yet serene. He understood that the night itself was a living entity, capable of both restlessness and calm. His role was not to command or enforce, but to guide and to weave, creating pathways for peace to follow naturally. He moved through valleys, over hills, across rivers, and through forests, leaving threads of tranquility behind him, weaving a tapestry of quiet harmony that stretched across the land. Each pulse of the staff, each ripple of silver light was a note in a silent symphony, a lullaby sung not to ears, but to hearts and minds. Eventually, as the night deepened, Hermes found a gentle hill overlooking a quiet village. He knelt, pressing the staff lightly into the ground, its glow radiating outward in concentric circles. Every house, every room, every restless mind beneath felt the effect, a wave of calm that spread invisibly, yet undeniably. A young couple lying awake in their home felt their worries dissolve, replaced by soft, comforting dreams. A traveler resting on the outskirts of the village felt an exhaustion he had carried for miles lift, leaving only the quiet pleasure of untroubled sleep. Even the smallest animals in the barns and fields responded, curling themselves into soft, peaceful forms. Finally, Hermes lay down upon the grass of the hill, the staff resting beside him, its glow dimming to a gentle, constant pulse. He opened his eyes fully, amber-gray glowing faintly in the silver light, gazing at the horizon where stars trembled in anticipation of the full night. His wings folded against his back, catching the slightest light, reminding the world that he was both guardian and guide. The threads of the staff continued their gentle weaving, invisible yet powerful, touching minds, hearts, and the very fabric of night. Sleepers dreamed peacefully, dreamers dreamed wildly, all under the tender, watchful guidance of Hermes and his silver staff of rest. And as the horizon faded into the deepest indigo, as the stars shone steadily, and as the first breath of moonlight brushed against the land, Hermes closed his eyes slightly. He did not sleep, but rested in the rhythm of the night, a silent guardian whose caduceus had sung its quiet song across the world. The restless had found peace, the anxious had found calm, and the night itself had become a sanctuary, woven together by silver threads of intention, care, and gentle guidance. The staff, radiant and patient, promised that the quiet harmony of the night would linger, a gift to all who slept beneath its glow. The bridge between worlds. Hermes moved along the horizon where the last light of day gave way to the first shadows of night, walking a space that existed neither entirely in wakefulness nor fully in dreams. This was a liminal realm, a delicate threshold where the mind teetered between consciousness and slumber, where thoughts could drift freely without the harshness of reality. In this place, Hermes' presence was a soft reassurance, a guide who moved with grace and care, ensuring that those who crossed would do so gently, without fear or sudden disruption. His robes shimmered faintly, catching the fading light and reflecting it in subtle hues of silver and pale blue, and his wings, folded lightly against his back, glimmered as though dusted with the first starlight. Each step he took left a ripple in the veil, a tiny disturbance that invited the minds of the weary to follow him across the bridge from wakefulness into the world of sleep. The bridge he walked was not a structure of wood or stone, but a living thread woven from twilight itself. It shimmered faintly in the dimming sky, stretching across the space between thoughts and dreams, a path visible only to those attuned to the subtle rhythms of the night. To the ordinary eye, it appeared as a faint glow along the horizon, a gentle shimmer among the clouds. Yet to those whose minds lingered at the edge of consciousness, it was unmistakably a guide into the unknown yet comforting world of dreams. Hermes' sandals whispered against it, a gentle rustling sound like leaves stirred by the softest breeze. It was a song without words, a lullaby sung in motion, carrying listeners across the delicate veil. He moved slowly, deliberately, aware that each step could ripple through the minds of those he guided. Some were already beginning to nod in drowsiness, their eyelids heavy with the weight of approaching sleep. Others resisted, clinging to thoughts that refused to settle, worries that pulled at the edges of consciousness like tugs on an invisible rope. Hermes' wings shifted slightly, catching the fading light, and he extended a hand, offering reassurance in silence. His caduceus, the silver staff that glowed with subtle pulses, extended faint threads of luminescence along the path, weaving through the veil to create stability, a sense of safety. Each thread was carefully placed, directed by Hermes' understanding of the delicate balance between waking and dreaming in one small town. A scholar lay on a simple bed, restless and tangled in thought, unable to release the day's concerns. The bridge shimmered faintly above him, and though he could not see it, he felt its pull. It was a gentle tug, like the urging of a tide, coaxing him to release the tension in his mind and follow the path into a softer, more fluid state. Hermes approached, his sandals brushing lightly against the edge of the veil, the silver threads of his staff winding around the scholar's awareness. Slowly, imperceptibly, the scholar's thoughts loosened, the day's worries melting into the rhythm of the night. When sleep finally claimed him, it was not abrupt or frightening, but a smooth descent, guided by the invisible hand of the messenger of twilight heaven, in places untouched by human hands. The bridge existed, across rolling meadows, through ancient forests, and above glimmering rivers. The path shimmered like mist caught between trees. Animals, too, recognized it in subtle ways. A deer pausing in the shadows lifted its ears, sensing a calm that moved through the air like liquid. Its nervous movements softened, its breathing slowed, and eventually it settled into the undergrowth for rest. Wolves, birds, and foxes all, who had been alert in the early night, found their rest, encouraged by the bridge's gentle pull, a rhythm that harmonized the natural world with the subtle lullaby Hermes carried. Hermes did not walk alone on this border, though none else were visible. The stars above shimmered faintly in sympathy with his movement, twinkling in delicate patterns as if conversing with him silently. The moon, crescent and poised in the deepening sky, bathed the path in soft silver light, reflecting the glimmer of the caduceus. Even the wind seemed to participate, flowing in subtle currents that guided the faint threads of the staff, brushing the veil of consciousness with whispered encouragement. Everywhere the messenger of twilight moved, he left traces of calm, creating a network of quiet harmony across the world, connecting hearts, minds, and dreams. The path itself was alive. It responded to intention, bending slightly toward those most in need of guidance. A child struggling with fear of the dark would find the bridge shimmering more brightly near their bedside, a comforting signal that they were not alone. A weary traveler resting under the stars would feel the rhythm of the path in their chest, a subtle vibration that matched the pulse of the world and eased their mind into release. Hermes' sandals whispered along the surface, each step a note in the silent symphony of the night, each rustle a delicate invitation to release and surrender to dreams. He paused at a river that glimmered in the moonlight, the water reflecting both the sky and the faint glow of his staff. Here, the bridge seemed most delicate, suspended over currents of water and thought alike. He knelt, extending the silver threads from his caduceus across the surface. The water responded, rippling in harmony with the vibration, and creatures along the banks, fish, frogs, and the small nocturnal mammals were soothed. The bridge's shimmer extended from the river into the sleeping world beyond, guiding minds over currents of unrest, across thoughts that had resisted the night's quiet, and into the comforting flow of slumber. Hermes moved along hills and valleys, over rooftops and through shadowed forests. Each location, though unique, responded to the same universal rhythm of the bridge. Townspeople, shepherds, children, and animals alike felt the call of sleep in harmony with the rustle of sandals and the glow of the silver staff. The bridge was not a force that demanded obedience. It was a gentle suggestion, a coaxing rhythm, a pathway that those who followed could navigate freely. Some would drift immediately into dreams. Others would linger at the threshold, feeling the pull and enjoying the delicate tension between thought and sleep. Hermes' patience allowed each to cross in their own time, with no hurry, no disturbance, only guidance. The bridge shimmered under his careful steps, threads of silver and pale blue light extending into the minds of those who had not yet surrendered to rest. A poet staring at the ceiling, restless with unformed ideas, felt a subtle pull, a release of mental tension, a loosening of the grip that prevented creativity from emerging. As the poet's thoughts began to drift, inspiration unfolded in the gentle space between wakefulness and sleep. Visions that could be carried later into consciousness or left to blossom fully in the dreamscape. Elsewhere, a tired mother, resting after a long day, sensed the edges of fatigue lifting, her body and mind softening, her heart attuned to the gentle rhythm that Hermes' presence wove across the landscape. Even in solitude, away from the presence of humans or animals, the bridge existed. In a quiet field, where the grass swayed under the influence of the night wind, the shimmer of the path moved like living silver threads through the air. Here, Hermes' sandals whispered in delicate tones, guiding the shadows and reflections, coaxing the unseen energies of the world toward gentle rest. The universe itself seemed to breathe in time with his movement, expanding and contracting like a chest in slow, measured rhythm, echoing the delicate balance between wakefulness and dreams. At times, he would pause, kneeling and placing a hand lightly upon the veil. Silver threads extended from the caduceus, twining through the minds of those nearby, smoothing jagged edges of thought, softening fears, and quieting questions that had remained unanswered. Those who received this gentle intervention did not notice the act consciously, yet their hearts felt lighter, their breathing slower, and their minds began to fold inward in preparation for dreams. In this way, the bridge functioned as both a guide and a guardian, not forcing sleep, but inviting it, creating a safe passage for the restless, the anxious, and the weary. The stars above seemed to move in subtle patterns, tracing constellations in faint response to Hermes' passage. Each twinkle reflected the threads of the silver staff, a quiet acknowledgement of the messenger's work. The moonlight flowed along the path, bathing it in gentle luminescence, and the wind carried the faint echoes of his sandals rustle like a song too delicate for ears, yet felt in the chest and spine. Across the world, the bridge extended, curving gently over hills, rivers, forests, and towns, inviting minds to cross at their own pace, guided by the quiet, patient hand of Hermes. Eventually, he reached a hill overlooking a quiet village. The bridge shimmered across the horizon, threads of silver and pale blue light extending into the homes below. Hermes knelt, allowing the staff to extend its influence fully, touching the minds of sleepers and wakeful alike. Children who had struggled to rest found themselves gently drifting into slumber. Adults weary from their day felt the tension melt, leaving only the soft pulse of the night to guide them. Even animals in the fields and forests felt the calming effect, settling for the night in harmony with the rhythm that Hermes orchestrated. Finally, Hermes lay down atop the hill, the silver staff resting beside him, its glow dimming to a gentle, steady pulse. His amber-gray eyes opened fully, reflecting the stars above, soft yet watchful. The bridge between worlds continued to shimmer, faintly, invisible to most, but deeply felt, guiding all who lingered at the threshold of consciousness into the comforting embrace of dreams. Sleepers dreamed peacefully. Dreamers wandered the edges of imagination. The restless found calm. Hermes, ever gentle, remained a solitary guide across the delicate veil, ensuring that the journey from wakefulness to dreams was smooth, harmonious, and infused with the quiet magic of twilight. And as the horizon deepened into the indigo of full night, the bridge continued to shimmer, the threads of the silver staff weaving quietly into the minds and hearts of all beneath it. The rustle of sandals faded gently into the rhythm of the world, a lullaby for those who needed it, a soft, unspoken promise that no one crossed the veil alone. Hermes, guardian of the threshold, lay in quiet vigilance, a serene presence, bridging worlds, carrying all toward the gentle, restorative world of sleep. The garden of forgotten worries stepped lightly through the twilight, the soft rustle of his sandals echoing like a gentle whisper across the horizon. The day had long surrendered to night, leaving the air cool and fragrant with the scent of evening flowers. As he moved, he guided those whose minds lingered on worries and burdens, leading them across the invisible paths that connected consciousness to the realm of dreams. Tonight, his journey would take him to a place both hidden and eternal, a sanctuary crafted not from stone or wood, but from the quiet corners of the mind, the garden of forgotten worries. This garden existed in the delicate space between thought and sleep, where reality softened and imagination could flourish freely. It was a place bathed in a gentle, diffuse light that seemed to emanate from the stars themselves. The illumination neither harsh nor dim, but perfect for easing the mind. Paths of soft moss wound through the space, guiding visitors past trees with leaves that shimmered faintly, reflecting the subtle glow of celestial light. Flowers of every hue leaned gently toward the ground, as if in deep contemplation, their petals moving with a rhythm as delicate as a heartbeat. Streams of water trickled in soft harmony, their surfaces reflecting constellations and glimmers of silver, weaving an auditory lullaby that paired perfectly with the rustle of Hermes' sandals. The garden was alive with intention. Here, worries did not vanish abruptly, but were transformed, released gently, like leaves drifting from a tree in autumn. Each leaf carried a burden, a tension, or a fleeting fear that had clung to the mind during the day. As Hermes guided the dreamers along the winding paths. The leaves shimmered and floated upward, dissolving into starlight before they could weigh down the heart. The process was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet deeply felt. The mind, once tangled with thoughts too heavy to untangle alone, found a quiet relief, a clarity that allowed the soul to settle, to breathe, to prepare for restorative slumber. A young dreamer, struggling with thoughts of inadequacy and self-doubt, followed Hermes into the garden. The rustle of his sandals was like a gentle metronome, a rhythm that aligned with the dreamer's heartbeat. The leaves of the nearby trees shimmered as his anxieties were lifted, and the soft glow of the flowers illuminated a path forward. Each step he took felt lighter than the last, as if invisible hands were helping to ease the tension from his shoulders. He felt an unfamiliar sense of safety, a quiet reassurance that the world, even in its waking chaos, could be held with gentle care within the sanctuary of dreams. Hermes paused beside a small, sparkling pond, its waters reflecting the gentle starlight in endless, undulating patterns. Here, he knelt, touching the surface lightly with his fingertips, sending ripples across the pond that carried tranquility outward into the garden. Dreamers watched as their reflections softened in the water, their features becoming calm and untroubled. In this reflective moment, worries seemed small, distant, almost inconsequential, fading under the gentle authority of the garden. The water hummed a silent melody, a lullaby without words, carrying a sense of peace to every corner of the mind. The garden was not only a place of release, but of renewal. Flowers opened fully under the influence of Hermes' presence, their petals reaching for the soft light of the stars. The air was filled with the subtle scent of jasmine and lavender, fragrances known to calm and soothe. Streams meandered gently, their waters cool and clear, reflecting both moonlight and starlight, creating endless patterns of silver that moved in harmony with the rustle of Hermes' wings. Each element of the garden was alive, responding to intention and presence, echoing the calm that Hermes imparted. Dreamers found themselves walking slowly, consciously or unconsciously, along the winding paths, their breathing deepening, hearts softening, and minds letting go. Even in the farthest corners of the garden, where shadows lingered longer and flowers leaned shyly toward the ground, Hermes' influence reached. The silver threads from his staff wound through the air, twining gently around each dreamer's consciousness. They did not bind or command, but simply suggested ease, a release of tension that had been carried too long. Here, worries that had persisted for days or even weeks began to shed, as though recognizing the safety and serenity of the garden. A mother burdened by care for her children, a scholar weighed down by endless thought, a lonely traveler longing for rest, all were embraced gently by the garden's transformative energy. Paths lined with soft moss invited rest along benches carved naturally from ancient roots, and Hermes guided his followers toward them when needed. Sitting upon these benches, dreamers felt their anxieties melt further, like ice dissolving under the warmth of morning sun. Small fountains bubbled in harmonious rhythm, their waters catching starlight and scattering it across the garden. reflecting tiny beams into the hearts of those present. Birds with iridescent feathers perched silently on branches, their presence a quiet assurance that life in this realm was gentle, safe, and nurturing. Each detail of the garden was intentional, a blend of natural beauty and dreamlike enchantment, a sanctuary where burdens were lifted without force or judgment. Hermes' own presence was central to the magic of the garden. He moved with the lightness of air, sandals whispering against the soft paths, wings catching and reflecting the starlight. His amber-gray eyes surveyed the dreamers with kindness and understanding, aware of which minds needed more guidance and which simply needed to be observed with calm assurance. His silver staff pulsed faintly, threads of light extending into the garden to weave a web of serenity that reached into every shadowed corner. Even the smallest gestures, tilting his head, extending a hand, allowing a smile to pass gently across his features, sent ripples of ease through the minds and hearts of all who followed him. At the center of the garden stood an ancient tree, its branches wide and protective, leaves shimmering with starlight. Here, Hermes often paused, allowing dreamers to gather beneath its canopy. It was a place of final release, where worries fell completely away, replaced by the tranquil rhythm of the garden itself. Leaves drifted down slowly from the branches, each carrying a fragment of concern, and dissolved into the soft glow of the soil. The air was warm, fragrant, and imbued with the quiet magic of restoration. Dreamers' hearts expanded in response, embracing the calm and wonder of a space that seemed eternal, timeless, and wholly safe. Hermes guided each dreamer toward this tree with patience and care. He understood that release could not be forced, only invited. Some arrived quickly, their anxieties shedding effortlessly, their steps light and unburdened. Others lingered, carrying heavier concerns, yet even they found the rhythm of the garden irresistible, the gentle pull of tranquility guiding them inexorably toward peace. And always, Hermes walked beside them, a calm presence, his silver staff humming softly with light, weaving threads of serenity into the very air around them. In the quiet hours, as the night deepened, the garden seemed to breathe in unison with its visitors. The streams, fountains, and leaves all moved with gentle rhythm, a reflection of the calm that Hermes fostered. Dreamers rested on mossy paths, beneath flowered arches, or under the canopy of the ancient tree. Their bodies softened, hearts eased, minds free from the clutter of daily concerns. Even the smallest creatures of the garden, moths, fireflies, and rabbits, moved with relaxed grace, joining in the collective serenity. Hermes' presence was a steadying force, a reminder that peace could be found, that worries could be let go, and that the night itself was a caretaker, weaving calm across the fabric of dreams. Occasionally, Hermes would release the silver threads of his staff higher into the air, allowing them to spiral and twine through the heavens. These threads touched distant landscapes, carrying the garden's serenity to those who had not yet found the path. Sleepers far from the garden, unaware of its physical existence, felt the same sense of ease, their worries dissipating like mist. The garden was both real and symbolic, a nexus of restoration, a reflection of the peace that could be cultivated in every mind if only given gentle guidance and a safe space to release burdens. Finally, Hermes rested beneath the ancient tree, the silver staff lying across his lap. His amber-gray eyes reflected the glow of the starlit garden, serene and watchful. The dreamers around him slept peacefully, their worries transformed into starlight and soft shadows that mingled with the luminous air. Every leaf, every flower, every ripple of water resonated with calm. Even the soft rustle of Hermes' sandals, barely perceptible, contributed to the harmony, a subtle reminder of his gentle guidance. And as the night deepened, the garden of forgotten worries stood as a sanctuary for all who entered, a place where troubles fell away like autumn leaves and were replaced by the quiet brilliance of starlight and calm. Hermes remained there, ever patient, ever serene, a guardian of dreams, a guide through the delicate transition from concern to peace, ensuring that all who visited would leave their worries behind and rest in the gentle embrace of the night. The quiet flight into dreams. The night stretched wide and deep, an endless canvas of indigo and silver, scattered with the quiet shimmer of stars. Hermes moved lightly across this twilight expanse, his wings folded softly against his back, catching faint glimmers of starlight with each subtle shift. The rustle of his sandals was almost imperceptible, a delicate whisper upon the horizon, and yet it carried a resonance that reached far beyond the limits of the eye. In his hand, the silver staff pulsed gently, a beacon of calm energy, weaving threads of peace through the world below. Tonight, as he moved along the delicate threshold between wakefulness and slumber, his task was singular yet profound: to guide every dreamer into the embrace of sleep, to carry their minds safely across the quiet expanse until the first touch of morning light. The journey began as he traced the invisible pathways that connected the waking world to the realm of dreams. Each step he took was deliberate, measured, as if the rhythm of the world itself were unfolding in tandem with his movement. Across the lands, in cities and villages, in meadows and forests, in the quiet corners of the earth, dreamers lingered on the edges of consciousness, hesitant to release the day's burdens. Hermes approached each with gentle patience, extending the subtle luminescence of his silver staff, its threads brushing lightly against the minds of those in need. The touch was imperceptible, yet profoundly soothing, a quiet invitation to surrender to rest. In a small village tucked beneath the shadow of rolling hills, a young musician lay awake, thoughts tangled in unfinished melodies and worries about the day to come. Hermes' arrival was unnoticed by ordinary sight, yet the gentle pulse of the staff wove itself into the musician's awareness. Each thread of light seemed to hum softly, vibrating in harmony with the rhythm of the dreamer's heart. Slowly, the tension that had gripped shoulders and thoughts began to dissolve. The melodies in the mind softened, flowing freely and gently, no longer constrained by expectation or anxiety, with a delicate whisper that seemed carried by the night air itself. Hermes guided the young musician toward the quiet sanctuary of sleep elsewhere. In a forest thick with shadows, a traveler lingered, weary from a long journey and burdened with the weight of uncertainty. The trees swayed softly as though in anticipation, their leaves brushing against each other with quiet rhythm. Hermes moved silently among the branches, his silver staff extending threads of light across the forest floor, reaching toward the traveler with a gentle insistence. The pull was subtle, not coercive, but irresistible in its calm presence. The traveler's thoughts slowed, the tension in muscles released, and the body relaxed fully into the night. Finally, the traveler lay upon the soft moss, surrendering to sleep, carried safely across the threshold by the messenger of twilight. Hermes' wings, delicate yet strong, caught faint glimmers of moonlight as he moved. With each beat, they spread gentle currents of air that rippled through the night, brushing softly against dreamers, caressing them into rest. These movements were subtle, almost imperceptible, yet they resonated deeply, aligning the rhythms of the world with the delicate cadence of sleep. Streams of light from the silver staff intertwined with these currents, weaving a pattern that touched every heart, guiding each to a state of calm that was both profound and enduring. In the valleys, where rivers reflected the soft gleam of stars, Hermes paused, kneeling beside the flowing waters. He extended the staff carefully, threads of silver light spiraling over the currents. The rivers responded, rippling in delicate harmony, echoing the calm that Hermes sought to instill in every mind. Fish moved languidly beneath the surface. Deer and other nocturnal creatures settled peacefully along the banks, and the wind carried the gentle rustle of leaves in a rhythm that mirrored the quiet pulse of the messenger's staff. In this way, even the natural world joined in the quiet flight into dreams, an unconscious symphony of serenity orchestrated by the calm presence of Hermes. He continued across hills and meadows, his path illuminated by faint threads of the staff. Dreamers from every corner of the land felt the pull, a gentle urging that invited them to release their conscious concerns. A mother, exhausted from a day of tending to her children, felt the weight of her thoughts lift as she lay on a soft bed beneath the moonlight. A scholar, whose mind had been restless with unfinished questions, felt clarity descend with the quiet hum of the silver staff. Even the most troubled of hearts sensed a subtle easing, as if the night itself had reached into their minds, smoothing jagged thoughts and replacing them with the soft cadence of approaching dreams. As Hermes moved, he whispered, though no sound carried beyond the faintest brush of air. The whispers were not words of command or instruction, but soft vibrations, resonant enough to be felt within the chest and spine rather than heard by the ears. Each whisper carried a promise: safety, calm, restoration. Those who lingered on the edge of wakefulness felt the reassurance sink into their awareness, a gentle acknowledgement that they would not be abandoned, that their journey into sleep would be guided, smooth, and protected. With each breath, each heartbeat, the dreamers' bodies relaxed, their minds released, and the final barriers between consciousness and slumber dissolved into gentle obscurity. Hermes paused occasionally, extending his wings and allowing their soft touch to brush across dreamers' resting forms. A faint glow of the staff followed, spiraling through the air like liquid light, illuminating faces and places in the most delicate way. Children who had been restless found themselves curling into comfort, their eyelids heavy, their breathing slowing in perfect rhythm with the invisible lullaby. Adults found tension leaving their shoulders, their hands unclenching, their thoughts folding inward like petals closing softly at dusk. Animals, too, joined in the universal calm, settling in fields and forests, their presence as peaceful as the dreamers themselves. He traveled along invisible threads that connected each mind, each heart, each soul to the night. The bridge he walked between wakefulness and dreams was the culmination of all previous journeys, the garden of forgotten worries, the bridge across consciousness, the silver staff's quiet weaving of peace. Now, all threads converged in one final flight, the night carrying its inhabitants safely through the soft abyss toward restoration. Hermes' amber-gray eyes reflected both vigilance and serenity as he ensured that every soul, no matter how restless, was guided gently and completely into the embrace of sleep in towns. The threads of light reached through windows, slipping beneath doors, winding around beds and resting forms. Even those unaware of the messenger of twilight felt the quiet pull. A poet lying on a simple mat began to drift into the images of dreams, thoughts and worries, dissolving into the gentle cadence of the night. A fisherman resting after a long day's work felt his muscles uncoil as if the currents of the river had followed him into his home. The staff's silver threads reached far, carrying calm across landscapes and consciousness alike, ensuring that no corner remained untouched by the gentle authority of sleep. Hermes' flight was neither hurried nor imposing. Each step was measured, each gesture intentional. The pace of night dictated the rhythm, and the messenger adapted effortlessly, weaving harmony with patience and awareness. Even the smallest movements of his wings, the soft brush of sandals, or the faintest pulse of the staff were sufficient to influence the delicate threshold, allowing dreamers to move freely yet securely into the world beyond conscious thought. Here, the journey of the night was complete only when each mind had been touched, soothed, and guided, no matter how long or difficult the passage had been. Eventually, Hermes reached a high hill overlooking a wide, sleeping valley. He knelt, pressing the staff lightly into the soft ground. Its glow spread outward, threads spiraling into every home, every heart, every mind that had yet to drift fully into sleep. He extended wings gracefully, casting subtle currents of calm across the night, and the valley responded as though the world itself were breathing a sigh of relief. Dreamers everywhere felt the gentle pull, moving without awareness from wakefulness into the quiet, expansive realm of slumber. The final moments of guidance were quiet, intimate, and deliberate. Hermes whispered one last time, a soft, inaudible murmur that conveyed the promise of protection until morning. The silver threads of the staff pulsed in subtle patterns, wrapping gently around each dreamer's consciousness. Fear, worry, and tension dissolved entirely, leaving only the soft resonance of peace, an assurance that every soul was safe, every heart unburdened, every mind free to wander into the beauty of dreams. The messenger of twilight watched, ever patient, ever serene, ensuring that the transition from wakefulness to sleep was complete and flawless. Finally, as the valley settled into full night, Hermes lay upon the hill, the silver staff resting across his lap, his wings folded gently against his back, his amber-gray eyes open and reflective, gazing across the sleeping world. Around him, the threads of light continued to shimmer faintly, extending softly into the distance, maintaining the delicate harmony he had crafted. The night itself seemed to pulse with quiet rhythm, the rustle of leaves, the flow of water, the distant sighs of sleepers, all synchronized with the gentle authority of Hermes' presence. He remained a guardian of the night, a calm guide, ensuring that the journey into dreams was complete, safe, and filled with the quiet promise of restoration as the first hints of dawn approached. Stretching faint fingers of light across the horizon, the messenger of twilight remained vigilant. Though the world began to stir, though birds prepared to sing, and rivers caught the light of morning, the dreamers remained undisturbed, their sleep secure, their hearts untroubled. Hermes' final whisper lingered invisibly, a soft promise woven into the fabric of their dreams, that they would awaken refreshed, their burdens lifted, and their spirits restored. And with this, the quiet flight into dreams was complete, the night fulfilled, and the messenger of twilight ready to guide the next evening's journey across the border of wakefulness and sleep. As our journey comes to a close, let the calm of the night settle in. Feel the serenity Hermes brings resting gently in your heart. Carry this peace into your dreams and sleep softly, deeply, until morning's light